Hi there. So here we are again with another video on the lecture series for the theory of Raman effect. So last time I had a lot of problem with my videos because this is my first time making some online content, so it will take me some time to make proper videos. But for now, this time I've already prepared the notes and I'm just going to explain uh, what I have written here. So, just for a recap, uh, last time we got a feel of what the polarizability actually is. So, if we uh, apply an electric field in a dielectric medium, then it's going to induce some di- dipole moment in that dielectric, and that induced dipole moment is what is per volume of that sample is called the polarization. And in general we saw that the polarization, though not aligned with the electric field direction, is proportional to the electric field, and the proportionality constant, the relation between polarization and electric field, is given by this linear relation for weak fields, and the constant of proportionality is different along different directions. So as we saw, uh, that we can develop these kind of metrics consisting of these constants, which was called the tensor of polarizability. It was a 3 cross 3 matrix, and each of the element gave a magnitude of how much of polarization was induced in any particular direction. So we got a feel of uh, what the polarization is and what the elements of the polarization tensor are, but we haven't seen it yet. Means that we don't know what the mathematical expression for alpha ij is, and to get the to see what that looks like, we first need to study the some basic theories. And for first we are going to study the time independent perturbation theory. So uh, as we have studied in earlier classes, or means early classes, or in some basic quantum chemistry lectures, that we have studied some basic potentials, some simple potentials like the infinite well or the harmonic oscillator or the rigid rotor, maybe Dirac well and hydrogen atom. So these are simple systems. Simple in the sense they are solvable analytically. That means you can solve them in paper and pen. But in most of the cases, in all of the cases in real world, you can't solve a system analytically. So thus you take help of many different approximations to wave functions or maybe potentials to get a reasonable solution for a given problem. A given problem, I mean a given Hamiltonian. So like, and one of those methods is the time independent perturbation theory. So this theory works if you have an ideal system of which you know the solutions for the Schrodinger equation, and you apply a small perturbation to it. Like in this case, this is suppose your infinite well, this is the ground state wave function. If you apply a small perturbation, this is the infinite well, and you see there are small undulations in the well. So these are very small perturbation compared to the infinite potential at the boundaries. So by intuition you know that the way you may figure out that the ground state of this distorted well may be similar to what the initial eigenfunction eigenstates of the undisturbed but Hamiltonian was, and it may be slightly distorted. So to solve these kind of problems, we construct our model Hamiltonian. So our Hamiltonian for a system. So we consider our Hamiltonian as some simple Hamiltonian plus some disturbances in it. So H0 is our simple Hamiltonian and H1 is the perturbation applied, and we have put a factor of lambda in front of it to show that its magnitude is will be smaller compared to h0, as we are taking lambda to be between 0 and 1. So lambda is a fraction, so whatever its magnitude will be, it will be smaller compared to the magnitude of this raw simple Hamiltonian. So yeah, and before proceeding further, I will let you know that I am going to use Dirac's bracket notation, and uh, also that for the simple Hamiltonian the eigenstates are orthonormal, and and I'll introduce more information as we go on. So the time independent perturbation theory approaches the problem by saying that for uh, small disturbances in the system, we can expand the eigenstates of the disturbed system by adding corrections to the undisturbed system's eigenstates. So here psi n represented by psi n of undisturbed Hamiltonian is represented by this ket vector. So for the disturbed system, the wave function will be given by the undisturbed wave function plus corrections, higher order corrections on it, lambda into first order correction plus lambda square into second order correction. Similarly, the energy can be expanded as the initial energy plus higher order corrections. So now we know our Hamiltonian and we have our trial solutions. So we plug this in to solve this stationary Schrodinger's equation to get this kind of equation, Hn equal to En psi n. So this is our H, this is our expanded psi n, here we put this here, this is our expanded energy, and this is our expanded wave function, and then multiplying them and collecting terms having the same power of lambda, we have this expression. Here the lambdas having similar powers are collected. So at both sides of the equation we have obtained a power series. So power series is any general expression of the form a plus bx square plus cx cube, a plus bx plus cx square plus dx cube plus, and it goes on like this, the increasing power of x. So as you can see, individual terms are linearly independent in this, and linearly independent means that you can't simply multiply a scalar to get another higher power of x. So these terms in itself are like components of a vector. Like in three-dimensional vector, you have I, j, k, which are all independent, and uh, if their two vectors are equal, then you can individually compare both their ith component, jth component, and kth component. Similarly, in both sides we have a power series, so we can compare the similar powers of lambda. Also, I'd like to mention one thing, that since this is a power series and in powers of lambda, so this, if lambda is small, then we can truncate this series in some up to some power of lambda. So that's why we can treat systems with smaller perturbations easily, because we can then truncate the expansion to uh, some lower order corrections. So proceeding further and comparing the uh, same powers of lambda, we'll get for this, for the 0th power of lambda, lambda to the power 0. This is our just the time independent Schrodinger equation for uh, the undisturbed Hamiltonian as expected. Now if we compare the first order terms, we are going to obtain this expression, h1 n0 plus h0 n1 plus equal to e1 n0 plus en0 n1. So if now Yeah, so n1, as you can see, is just a first order correction upon n0. So it's not an eigenfunction, like eigenfunction of h0 or undisturbed Hamiltonian, but it's a general function, it's a function. So since our eigenstates of the initial undisturbed Hamiltonian are complete, we can express any arbitrary function in this world as a linear sum of the eigenstates of the undisturbed Hamiltonian, and this is given by this. This is like a Fourier series. So and also, as I stated earlier, that the eigenstates of the initial Hamiltonian are orthogonal. So this is represented like this. And again, to remind you, the Dirac's bracket notation simply means this integral. This expression means this integral. So everything of this form is an inner product only. So putting this this expansion of in place to expand n1, our disturbed Hamiltonian, the first order correction in the wave function, we obtain this. You can, if I am too fast, you can pause the video and watch it, the expression. Yeah, and while I am explaining it, you keep deriving on yourself also. That will help you understand better. So once we obtain this expression, we multiply both sides by this bra vector, which is simply psi n0 complex conjugate of this function. So we get this expression. Yeah, and again, now for this expression, you can see h0 is acting on this summation. So h0 is individually acting on each of the l0s. Now h0, when acts on l0, l0 being the eigenstate of h0, gives an energy el. So we'll get this. So what's so here we have the expectation value of first order correction in the basis of grounds, in the basis of undisturbed Hamiltonian, plus this term, plus first order energy correction, plus this energy term. Now if you compute this, then n0 and l0 being orthonormal, they will turn out to be delta nl, and this expression turns out to be same as this expression. So both the sides we can cancel them, giving the first order correction in energy as the expectation value of the disturbed Hamiltonian, means the perturbation on the undisturbed basis. So this is the first order correction to the perturbed correction in energy to the perturbed Hamiltonian. Similarly, now we need to get the first order correction in the wave function. So again, we look at equation 6. We now rearrange this equation and collect the same wave functions on one side. So it looks like this, and yeah, and again I'm using the basis of undisturbed Hamiltonian to expand the first order correction in the wave function, just like before here, equation 7, and now I'm naming this equation 15. So for n1, putting this expansion, I'll obtain this, and then multiplying by any eigenstate of the undisturbed Hamiltonian will gives this one, and again using the orthonormal conditions we arrive at the projection of the first order correction in wave function on any of the eigenstate of the undisturbed Hamiltonian is given by this expression m0 h1 n0 by En minus Em. And again our first correction was expanded like this. Now we put in place of this the expression that we obtained, and this gives our first order correction to wave function. Similarly, the second order energy connection can be calculated by considering the comparing the second power of lambda in this equation that we earlier saw. So comparing the second power of lambda, we obtain this h0 n2 plus h1 n1 equal to en2 n0 plus en1 n1 plus en0 n2, and multiply by n0 bra on one side, both sides, we obtain this. Now here we see this. Now we can see, now we know that initial undisturbed Hamiltonian is Hermitian, so it can act on either bra or ket, any one of those. So instead of this, I can write that h0 is operating on n0 to give en0. So this turns out to be this. Now I can replace the n0 h0 n2 by en0 n0 n2, which gives this. So from both sides I can cancel these two expressions, leaving me out with en2 equal to, just rearranging this one, h1 n0 h1 minus en1 n1. Now we need to evaluate this expression. Again I'll expand n1 in terms of the basis that we have for the undisturbed Hamiltonian, and this is a summation over m, so I'll just pick out n from this summation, which leaves me summation over all m, just cancelling out, just n not included in that. So this, because I pulled out the nth term and the remaining product is like this, yeah, and the energy expression is also like this. So doing some more algebra, I can show that the second order correction in energy comes out to be this. Now this we have already figured it out earlier, it was here. So we simply substitute this here. So this gives us the second order correction to the energy. You can also write this in this this form. Now yeah, so this lecture might have been boring, but you see this result will be used later to give an expression for the polarizability, the elements of the polarizability tensor matrix. So see you in the next video, in which I will explain about Hellman-Feynman theorem, which is not as boring as this one, but it's very interesting, and yeah, that's all. So if you have any doubts or any more suggestions for me to improve my video, please comment down below, and thank you. See you in the next video.